The Department of Energy initially gave the green light for state weatherization grantees to begin leveraging dollars to help supplement the program way back in 1991 with a, say, $55,000 grant that went to each of the weatherization grantees across the country. And with that, some states chose to use that money to start some type of a very focused, concentrated leveraging project. And that's how I started working with leveraging in West Virginia. And it is my knowledge that in the states where the state chose to really get focused way back long ago with a concentrated, organized approach to leveraging, particularly as being intervening and involved in utility rate cases and partnering with utility companies, those projects are still ongoing, and they have been in the weatherization state plans for years, and they definitely bring a huge investment ratio return on the dollar of any grant funds invested to help pay for staff or legal support or consultation, etc. What is great about talking about leveraging in 2012 is that you can look at what's going on in your state or region in your state and find similarities, and you can really think and dream about what type of a weatherization partnership you feel you need to get going in your state that might provide additional money. Utility companies right now are facing huge rate increases with costs rising. They see the whole issue of carbon legislation on the horizon. The economic slowdown has really affected even discussions about carbon, obviously, but I don't think it will go away, and the rate increases will continue. So more utility companies will be involved in demand-side management programs, which also will be set up to assist the poor, and weatherization is a perfect fit with that. So now is the time to get into planning and organizing, developing the capacity that you'll need. And you have to find in your state a core working group who can talk through some of this, because you have to really be persistent and concentrate on your performance goals, what you want to obtain. But what is really neat about 2012 for anyone just getting into it is that you have almost 20 years of history of people working with weatherization resources to leverage funds. So there is this wonderful quote-unquote toolbox that exists for leveraging, and it has all types of information in it, from Oak Ridge National Lab data that you can find on the EOS website to a lot of public information materials and written papers and resources which become part of the tools you can use in your arguments to develop leveraged resources. And I really like what Meg had sent in the webinar packet, the one document, two-page document called the law, the regulation, and also the guidance that is available to tell you how you can work with DOE weatherization. I think anyone brand new on this webinar should take the time just to read through that and become more familiar. It is really amazing that DOE gives such flexibility to get your leveraging project going. On the next slide, we talk about how state plans describe and fund a process, but they have to reflect this shared goal of where we want to go. And if you're sitting listening to this webinar, you're thinking about, what might those goals or success definitions be in your state. It could just be getting involved in a demand-side management program with your utility company. It could be that your state community action association will become recognized in the regulatory body, your utility commission, and maybe at the legislature as an advocate for low-income weatherization and low-income energy efficiency. And sometimes you have to build that credibility. You have to identify your goals for the services and the participants you want to bring in. And so in the very beginning of developing your goal, and although, as Meg said, we have a little bit of time, we don't have a lot of time for a state to come up with a whole new process. You'd want to keep it really general, but you do want to determine who your potential partners might be and who your potential funders might be, and who might the stakeholders and the beneficiaries be of your weatherization leveraging project. And I can say, based on my own experience, it is just amazing what a state's leveraging project can bring in as far as bringing together stakeholders. It might be your State Weatherization Policy Advisory Council members, and they have their own networks. It could be some of your local Community Action Agency Board of Directors that have a tripartite board, and they represent so many different aspects of a community. And so with weatherization and leveraging, knowledge is power throughout your network. So having organizational support really is a must. And as we all know, with weatherization, we have to be accountable. We have to have a cost-benefit ratio that proves to taxpayers and ratepayers and businesses that we bring a strong investment back for every dollar that is spent. I also think on the next slide you'll just see a quick list of a small strategy team that you can pull together to discuss your weatherization leveraging project, and that can include your internal weatherization family. I often like to refer with weatherization leveraging to the external group and the internal group. And the internal group can be everyone from our weatherization subgrantee agency's board of directors. It can be agencies' contractors that they use with weatherizations. It can be the local policy advisory council, a state policy advisory council. It's also good to have some dilution with your group to maybe bring in other thoughts with current partners or housing program directors. But these are all people that, thinking very strategically, you want to identify quickly, and it's easy to do that just on a piece of paper or on your computer. So on the next slide we talk a little bit about how you find a champion. And I will say, with what Meg and I are talking to you today regarding leveraging, across the country in the past there have been complete one-day workshops, complete two-day trainings with state leadership on how to develop your leveraging goals and strategies. So we are giving you that very quick brush stroke of what is going on, but Economic Opportunity Studies and the National Community Action Foundation have lists of low-income advocates and low-income consultants across the country who have worked with local agencies, state associations, state weatherization offices to help them pull together leveraging and participate with testimony in rate cases and before legislative bodies. So as I referenced earlier, this all really exists. But in your state or your network, you really want to define your framework. You might need to bring in a facilitator to help you do this, but probably you can do it yourself. And so you're trying to consider, what are your goals? Do you want to weatherize more homes with possible funding decreases? Do you want to try and retain some of these really smart and certified contractors or employees that we have brought on? Weatherization has amazing assets, and we have amazing opportunities with energy efficiency because people's budgets are tight, and so we need to get involved with our responsibilities with weatherization and make the information public to provide transparency as to what we do and involve our stakeholders. I also wanted to just continue a little bit on the next slide that, you really don't have any, like Meg said, it can be a one-year strategy, it could be a three-year strategy. So if your first year doesn't have to be really complex, but you do need an outline, and you should be talking to the state weatherization director and staff it's really good, I think, to read some of the other state weatherization leveraging plans. That gives you some ideas on how to be flexible and where they may have come in with developing new partnerships. It's not always a utility company, or sometimes it's someone that someone knows. It's also really useful to become savvy as to what references and data libraries exist, and now with the internet and all of our communications, the EOS website for Weatherization Plus is just tremendous. There's also the Weatherization WAPTAC, which has great resources and a very sophisticated public information component. When your funding plan is approved or given the nod by your state office, I've said this so many times, and it shows up on this next slide, you have to choose a project manager. You have to have a point person identified. Meg has said before, this can't be someone who is just going to think about this on Friday afternoon at the end of a long work week. A point person has to be identified to lead the leveraging activity, and often they have to be paid, or maybe it's part of another job they're doing, but it should be their primary job, because especially when you start, you really need to give this a lot of thought. You have to organize all of the different sub-grantees or CAP association members. You have to have depth in your work. You have to be aware of what the hot discussion points are if you want to get in a utility commission. It may not be a rate case. It may be some type of a hearing that is held on smart meters or smart grid, and so someone needs to quickly do some research and be smart on that. So we're following the money and what works best in a state, and then the Foundation for Success tip also on the next slide just shows that it's really important, once this point person has been identified and you have a plan being congealed, that you begin meeting with potential partners and you begin talking about what you are going to do. I know way back when I first started with the West Virginia Governor's Office and Weatherization Program, I went with the Community Action Association Executive Director for the state, and we requested a meeting with the Public Service Commission consumer advocate, one very smart and bright man. And we were both shaken at the knees when we went in there, because we knew our program, but we did not know his issues. And that first meeting really helped us just set the groundwork and develop a partnership that was so useful to us for the last 16 years. So you want to meet with partners, and as you've often heard, if you've been around weatherization at all, organizing a site demonstration to show your policymakers or your Public Service Commission staff what weatherization really does is a great sales point. And so we have so many tools that we can now use with social media and video. There are an amazing number of weatherization videos on YouTube that focus on jobs, employment, our business partners. That's a real asset.
Yep. As Lisa mentioned, we've got 20 years of tools and examples and histories and case studies and evaluations and lists stored on the Weatherization Plus site. And we can do more during this ERA project period, which goes on through next year, to staff your efforts to put together, maintain, change, leveraging projects. Really just standing on the shoulders of Lisa and so many others that have been doing these projects and then been kind enough to stop and share the experience and their work products and so forth. For now, we have the capacity, in a minor kind of way, to act as your staff while you're getting in a startup phase before you have some leveraging point people and a team that's really on it full-time. We can help you do what staff would be doing internally to get you planning and persuading other people and equipped. When you get going and that your state really does have the project managers and the team, we can be here to help them, feed them the tools and the templates that others use, because will need to be adapted, of course, to whatever your circumstances are right there. And, we'll need you to help us figure out in the next few months, if not weeks, just what it is you need and, how we can deliver on that for you where and when we can. Really want to. This is a great opportunity. Let me just basically to end this, go to the next slide, because I'm reminding you as you start this kind of daunting task that we call it leverage because it's your asset, this important set of abilities and capacity that you are coming and offering to partners. Can we show them my favorite little cartoon here of the lever? You are putting basically the weight of your experience, your people, and the capacity that you're going to be keeping for the next 9 to 12 to 15 months, depending on the rate at which previous year's money and are going to be spent out. You're still a formidable force in the efficiency industry. When your organizations and teams dwindle, the management expertise is still an extraordinary force in the efficiency industry. And it's not an industry that's very well established in almost all states. So particularly the states that don't have leveraging. So you're going in there not as a charitable exercise, not as a fundraising exercise, but to develop partnerships because they're going to keep their value and they're going to call on you and your workforce to do the best and most advanced kind of work that is available. In closing, and after I close, we'll just check again and make sure no one's got questions or something they want to talk about. We really want you to get in touch, even just to brainstorm. There are a few people on this call who've been giving us some challenges to brainstorm before, and we're hoping for stage 2, and for the rest of you, hope you'll be in touch. And we'll try and figure out what we can do to help you. And we will have webinars and conversations and newsletters about other specific parts of leveraging initiatives. This is just one important and on a deadline activity that you ought to look at if you're thinking about funding your initiatives. So,
Meg, I'd like to just interject something you made me think of, and we do have just a little bit of time, so I think this might be value-added observation. But you were commenting about the home performance industry, and that it's, I think when President Obama came in, his vision was that once we got through the recession with renewables and energy efficiency, by 2012 there would be this wonderful, vibrant residential housing market with energy efficiency. I thought so too, I hope so, but boy, that's certainly not where we are, but it still is on the horizon. It still is where we will be. And so with leveraging projects, 2 things come to my mind if you're new and you're thinking about, geez, how in the world do we begin this? One is to talk to Meg and Eli and Fred at EOS, because there may be a utility company that comes into your state or area that has provided some low-income energy efficiency partnership activity in another state. Each state's regulatory standards and regulations are different, so what happens in one state may not easily happen in another state. But I think EOS can really hook up people interested with leveraging with something similar that's going on around the country. And my other quick piece of advice, talking about the home performance industry, once you really have a leveraging plan going, One of the useful tools that we have used, and I've seen other states with leveraging projects use, is to organize maybe a public energy forum. But now this isn't just where the public comes walking in like an energy fair. It's where you have a very organized panel of speakers, and maybe your guest list is totally select with your CAP network and your utility commission consumer advocate and maybe your state, Senate, and House Energy Committee leadership, and various folks who can speak about energy and where we're going. And it's a way to network and begin the discussion, possibly showcase what your program does. We've used that a couple times in my state, and every time it was very beneficial. And that's all I have to say on that.
I just want to thank you all for participating and wish you all Godspeed in starting these projects and moving forward. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a great afternoon.